Formula One's bloody high pressure. If you make a very small mistake or you lose a tenth of a second, that can really change the result of a race.
Kim, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm really excited. I'm a big Formula One fan. I really got into it after the Netflix series. So we really, as a family, sort of started to pay more interest. So can't wait to unpack your involvement in the F1. But for those that don't know you and that haven't sort of met you before, how do you normally introduce yourself?
As Kim, first and foremost. I've you're right. I've been working in Formula One. Well, I had a very lucky to have a career in Formula One for about 8 years. I was originally a physiotherapist. That's what I studied at uni, and then I went on to sort of do a master's in strength and conditioning and sports science, and sort of fell into Formula One. And my job there was I was a performance coach or a sort of a high performance manager. So I was working with individual drivers in a full-time traveling role with them, working for them exclusively, and basically taking care of all of their physical preparation, mental preparation, nutrition, everything outside of the car so that when they got into the car, they can drive to the best of their ability.
Did you work for obviously particular teams, or was it Formula One as a group?
No, I worked for particular drivers in particular. So I worked for the drivers. So my first driver I worked for was Romain Grosjean, who was a French-Swiss driver. I was living with him in Geneva, which was awesome. And he was at Haas F1 team at the time. And then after that, I started working with Oscar Piastri, who's obviously fellow Melburnian.
Yep, and the famous Aussie that's doing amazing things at the moment.
He was doing very well. So, and obviously we were at McLaren during that time, but I worked for those drivers individually. So I only cared about the individual driver.
Take us back. What was the moment you realized that performance isn't just physical? Because, I mean, obviously, you know, you got to get these guys physically fit, but there must have been a moment where going, these guys, I can't even set them apart in terms of how physically fit they are. When did you realize a fair chunk of that is psychological?
Oh, I think as you sort of grow up through sport, you know, being a sports fan and sort of working in sport and even playing sport yourself, you get an understanding of that. But you are right. Formula One you don't necessarily need to be the fittest driver to succeed in Formula One, but you do have to be pretty strong between the ears. So, and when you see the boys at the top perform, you know that they're pretty ruthless and they've got, you know, pretty strong ambitions and, you know, very, very resilient in the head.
And is there a technique that a physician or a PT or someone that actually is driving their physical thing, because I guess the mind plays here. You're probably a mind coach as much as you are a physical coach. Yeah. How did you try to train the mind without them even realizing you were training the mind?
Yeah, there's lots of little ways you can do it. A lot of the drivers now will have sort of a specialized mind coach or a sports psychologist or something that they'll work with. But because you spend so much time with the driver on an individual basis, you're obviously always reinforcing behavior patterns or little conversations here and there, which you might be changing the way that you communicate to get certain points across or to influence a certain decision. So it's a lot of fun and a lot of challenges along the way as well.
So take us back to an example of where you were at a proud moment where maybe Oscar won a race or that you started to see his incline in his performance and you were like, shit, I was a big part of that. Can you take us through a story where you worked on something that you then saw a result and really was something where you go, deep down, you knew you had a major play?
Yeah, a big part is, I mean, look, I played a part, that's for sure. A big part is a tough thing to say, but probably two things come to mind. Was my very first race with him. I started working with Oscar when he was 19 years old in Formula 2, which is sort of like the junior development series to, if you do really well in that, then you progress to Formula 1. He was a rookie in his first season and he came into the race racing against a couple of sort of, you know, big dogs, people who were probably the championship favourite. And in the first race, Oscar got his elbows out and, you know, just defended real strongly against these guys and beat everyone. And I remember thinking after that, geez, this guy's got something special. Like, you know, he's happy to get really stuck in here. So it was the first time I really saw that talent. And I thought, I'm working with a really good driver here. But then a few examples over the course of his career where I just knew that the hard work that we had put in behind the scenes, just in terms of sporting development, but also just in human development, right? Him becoming from a 19-year-old to a 20-year-old to a 21-year-old, this natural progression, where you saw him grow into his Formula One personality. And I think, there was a few instances where I noticed that, and that was very rewarding. Our first podium in Japan was unbelievable. And yeah, it's just good to give yourself a pat on the back when you get there.
Oh, I love that. Let's talk about that high performance. So when you're getting people and coaching people of that eliteness, you probably don't need to overcoach their ambition and so on. What advice would you have to a business owner that has a mixture of different type of young people within their organization, young and old and different age profiles, and you're trying to create a high performance environment? So I guess you're not sitting there going, guys, they're already at the top of their thing. So how do I do that in my business? And our business owners that are listening, they're like, fuck, we just want to get the best out of these guys, but they're sleeping in, they're rolling in. Like, how do I go, come on, we only live once. I have this saying, so this is a long question, but I have this saying, being an accounting firm, most of our staff have done a degree. They've gotten relatively good marks at school.
They're smart people, right?
They're really smart people. And they had to do a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, now that you've got a job, it's like, you're fucking around. Like, this is the game. That was pre-season. So
what are we doing?
what tips do you have to business owners that can really ramp up that high performance, and some ideas or tips you can give us that can really elevate that team environment to perform at its best?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I really like is if you have common goals within the organization that people can buy into and work towards, I think that's the most powerful thing when working in a team environment. Various people have got different reasons for turning up to work, right? And not everyone wants to become the top 1%. And that's completely understandable, and that's fine. So then it's just, how can you motivate your workforce to buy into a common goal of the organization, or to improve a little bit day by day, whatever it may be? How do you get that message across to help people buy in? And I think once you get the buy-in, then the rest sort of takes care of itself to a certain extent. And it's not linear. You don't just buy in and then all of a sudden you achieve your goals. You need to keep revisiting in over the course of the year. But I think that, yeah, if you can get a good message across where there's buy-in, I think that's a good start.
Great advice. Can you walk us through a specific high pressure moment where everything is on the line in a race? It's high pressure, and explain what the best drivers do differently in that exact moment to someone that might do it differently.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a really good question. Formula One's bloody high pressure. There's a lot of stake in terms of the amount of money that teams are spending. There's a lot of eyeballs watching the sport. And I think, as everyone knows, if you make a very small mistake or you lose 1/10 of a second, that can really change the result of a race. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure. I think what you see the top drivers do, Max Verstappen's, Oscars, Lando's, Lewis Hamilton's, etc., they all have different mechanisms of coping with that pressure and different strengths, but they have to be able to overcome that pressure and deal with it. And part of that is experience, right? So just being put in that position time and time again, you learn to cope with it better. Whereas other drivers who perhaps are a little bit more temperamental might get into that situation, sort of go into this chaotic frame of mind, lose their head, the red mist comes down, and then all of a sudden their driving capacity goes out the window and all of it, and they perform badly. So yeah, there's a wide range of skill sets, I guess, that can go into that, but the top certainly perform better at that than anyone else.
Yeah. And how important is recovery? I always think of this, especially when Formula One's coming around the corner for us in Melbourne and the season's about to start. And I go, obviously their budgets are huge, but they go from Melbourne to Austria to Japan and it's just flying around town, around the globe overnight. How important is recovery, sleep, and how much involvement did you have in that? But really, for me, when I'm wearing a Whoop at the moment, and we talk about this on the podcast a fair bit around, recovering from a big day so you can go again. How do they manage all of that? What's the trick that a business owner can relay to their staff and how to look after their recovery so they can go again?
Yeah, and you're right. There's 24 races over the course of the year to basically all continents. So travel is huge, particularly in the second half of the year. So from August through to December, they're traveling Japan, Austin, Brazil, Mexico. Like, it's just the Abu Dhabi, Qatar, going back and forth all over the world. And that's when the drivers really start to, get hit by jet lag quite heavily. It's towards the end of the season. Maybe motivation is starting to wane a little bit. Marketing commitments are starting to pick up. So yeah, recovery and making sure that you can perform consistently over the course of the year is super important. And you're right, a lot of drivers wear Whoops now or Oura rings to just, track their metrics. There's other questionnaires and stuff that you can do. I was very lucky that you're only working with one athlete, so you get a very good understanding of them, right? You know how they're tracking along. But something that we always spoke about was, Formula One is such an intense lifestyle that you also need to be able to escape from that and go and enjoy things outside of that, where you can have some downtime or spend time with your girlfriend or go and eat at some restaurants that you like, whatever it may be. So we always spoke about being switched on at work, which is in Formula One in this regards. Or, if it's someone that's got, someone that's got an organization that's got people working for them, come to work and perform, but then, make sure that you can escape that when you're in your outside life, because that just helps you top up your batteries or refill your cup, as some people put it. So we were big on that to maintain energy levels throughout the year.
So you were traveling around the world with F1. You've chosen to come back to Melbourne and do something a little bit different. Take us through what you're doing at the moment. You've built this product, software, AI called Pocket Mentor AI. I'm assuming you're taking a lot of these learnings into a nice little application that can be scaled. Take us through what Pocket Mentor AI is. What were the motivations behind it? And
we might have to pay you to come and promote for us, mate. Yeah, that's a perfect summary. Yeah. So I left Formula One a year ago, full time.
Yeah.
Just because after spending 35 to 40 weeks on the road a year for 8 years, it's a lot. So it's time. I wanted to live in Australia ongoing, so it was time to move home and start tackling some other things in my life, some things that I wanted to do. So I was very fortunate to get introduced to the two original founders of Pocket Mentor, Daniel Pratt and Matt Spanger. They're both ex-AFL players, still working in the AFL full-time in sort of coaching and strategy roles. And they had developed Pocket Mentor basically off the back of, they used to be driving home from work and talking to ChatGPT at the time, sort of talking about any problems that they had, anything that they wanted to achieve, et cetera, et cetera. And they thought, we're not really happy with the output here. We can make this a little bit more bespoke, a bit more grounded, a bit more like guided for the sort of advice that we would want to receive, right? So they went back into ChatGPT and sort of uploaded all of their high performance coaching frameworks, all of their material from when they were back playing the game, things that they found useful, to effectively make Pocket Mentor. And so, as you touched on, Pocket Mentor's sort of your AI personalised mentor that's grounded in values and high-performance coaching frameworks to help you in your day-to-day life.
Does it work for business owners? So is it designed for someone that's trying to make change within an organisation and so on? Or is it designed for specifically athletes and so on? So what sort of the target audience that you're looking at?
So to start with, it's a B2C app. So it's very much just a customer focused app for individuals. But of course, if you're a business owner, you might have some challenges that you want to bounce off, sort of an AI mentor to give you honest sort of feedback on it. But at the same time, we're targeting sort of men between 20 to 45 who might have any self-growth goals or any problems that they want to discuss in a safe space with zero judgment. So that's really the target audience that we're going after.
So Pocket Mentor AI, how do you utilize some of the things and learnings you've had in F1 and applied it into Pocket Mentor? And where's that link that comes into play?
Yeah, so I guess I was very fortunate that I was working very closely with F1 drivers, spent a lot of time with them, and to some extent you become their mentor, right? And you understand very intricately what high performance is, and also things that can help them on their journey, progressing day by day, improving performance, whatever it may be. So that's something personally that I had a passion in. But you also see some of the struggles that Formula One drivers have. And, these guys are paid a lot of money, but at the same time, they're still in some ways very isolated. They have a lot of fame, so they can't just go out to a normal restaurant without getting bothered. So a lot of the time they spend, times in their hotel rooms just by themselves when they're on the road. And, Lando Norris has spoken about this. A few drivers have touched on it. And so I really started to notice that even people at this high-performing level getting paid a lot of money still lack guidance, still lack someone that they can trust and that they can talk to about any issues that they might be having. So that was the reason that I got involved with Pocket Mentor, because I could see this need, and it's something that I'm passionate about, certainly at that level, but then I understood how it can help anyone at any level going through their day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's interesting. As a fan of sport across many different sports, you idolize your Ronaldos and the Oscar Piastris and, the Roger Federers, but you forget that their lives are so different. They have all this fame, thousands of people screaming when they're playing. And I'd love to, have their life for a week.
Incredible.
But at the same time, I'm like, geez, I'd love to be able to just go to my favorite restaurant and not be bothered.
Yeah.
You've been in that world. Open the curtains and maybe describe what that was like, because you traveled with them, because you would have been in some of those restaurants and gone, can I bloody I'm not going to dinner with you anymore. Like, how did that work?
That's right. I just want to relax. I'm not coming with you anymore.
Can you take us through some of some stories, and what was that like that may not be in the space? How do they feel?
Something that I spoke to Oscar about early doors, when he first came into Formula One, I was like, mate, you don't understand this yet, but over the next couple of years, your life is going to change significantly. So while you're not too famous, really enjoy it for what it is, So when he came back, we used to just be able to go down to Woolworths, maybe one or two people would say hello, but you can go, you can do your shopping, whatever. Sounds simple, but I tell you what, that's an unbelievable thing to be able to do in life, right? Because that changes very quickly, especially with fame. And everywhere just becomes, I'm not saying this in a negative way necessarily, but everything just becomes harder to do.
Yeah.
A good story that you'll enjoy was when he first moved to Monaco. I was over there helping him move into his apartment. And we went down to, just the local, effectively Harvey Norman, whatever the electronics goods store is over there, to buy a microwave and to buy a vacuum cleaner. So I'm walking through Monaco with a microwave on my shoulder. He's carrying a vacuum cleaner. And then all of a sudden we're walking along the harbour and two girls recognise him. And just ask for selfies and whatnot. So here's me and him holding a microwave and a vacuum cleaner, getting selfies with these two fads, which is just unbelievable. But yeah, look, it's, there's pros and cons. One of the hard rules that we had was very happy, and this is not just with Oscar, this is sort of with all drivers, by the way. Very happy for fans to come and ask for selfies and all this sort of stuff. The engagement's awesome, but the one rule that we had, which was probably something that I implemented, was like, when they're out having dinner, at least wait until they finish their meal, And I get it. People get excited. It's the first time in their life that they might see someone famous or there's someone that they're a big fan of, but very happy to take a photo, but just wait until the meal is finished, at the very least, right?
No, that's fair. Have you enjoyed? Are you still an avid fan? You still get to get up at 4 a.m. and watch the race?
I tell you what, I was tired last year. I was feeling the jet lag like the drivers did. Yeah, it's not good times in Australia.
So take us through that moment when he was flying and all of a sudden it sort of started to come back. I know there was because even though there's two in a team and it's a bit of an individual sport, there is a team element to it. What do you reckon happened there? What was the motivations behind how it all played out? Do you have an insight, Goss? Maybe a Goss, but your view on, did Oscar Piastri get stooged in winning it?
Nah, I think he's come out and said, everything was above board. Look, McLaren did awesome. They did an awesome job. They had two really good drivers and they let them compete, right? Which is all anyone can ask for. That's what the fans wanted. It turned out to be an incredible season for that reason. You always learn a lot through your losses or when things don't go right. So I'm sure that Oscar learned a lot from the second half of last season. There's probably some things that he would do differently, probably some things that the team would do differently. But I mean, the good news is it looks like they're going to have a good car again this year, hopefully. So, he's only going to improve year on year from here, and he's so competitive and such a good driver we all just want him to do great, right? So,
yeah. Now, you get back to Pocket Mentor AI. So you're now heavily involved in entrepreneurship. Yeah. What have you found the most challenging going, shit, this is hard. I want to go back to F1, whereas we'd be going, this is easy. That looks hard. What are the things that you've found that are just like, wow, this is not as easy? Not about easiness, but
you're right.
What did you find getting involved in that?
I mean, it's been, getting into tech entrepreneurship has been a massive learning curve for me. I've loved it, loved every second of it. It's been great. I'm not necessarily a tech background, so just even learning about the intricacies of that has been brilliant. I mean, certainly if you're comparing a startup which is strapped for cash compared to a Formula One team, one of the hard things is just been able to get things done, with resources, you're on a shoestring budget all the time. But it's been awesome. It's been really good. And, leaning into networks that I have and also the boys have through sport as well has been brilliant. So, yeah, we're probably going to be hopefully going to market in 2 or 3 months. And we certainly lean into those channels to push the app out to everyone.
Amazing. Where does AI genuinely help, and where should humans kind of not outsource that judgment? I know, because obviously Oscar's never going to probably replace someone like yourself at the level of money that they have. But where do you go, oh, we're building this AI tool, but you know what, we got to be careful because that reads a human. What are your thoughts on that?
And we're very pro what you've just said. So we are very clear that we're not a mental health app. That's not our job. There's trained psychologists out there that can, and psychotherapists and everything that can take care of that. We sit in more of the mental wellness bracket. That's what we're really chasing. So we're adjunct to that. And if anyone's chatting with the AI agent and maybe showing some signs of any mental health tendencies or perhaps going down a slippery slope, we refer them to psychologists straight away, to the professionals, because as you said, you need that human element. That human element's super important. But at the same time, we think that being able to chat to an AI agent sort of anytime, anywhere, you don't have to book an appointment. You might be sitting on your couch at 8 p.m. at night and think, I just want to bounce this idea off something. And you're able to do that to to pocket mentor who's got these really good values built into it, really good frameworks built into it, and you can get a pretty robust answer, more specific than what you'd get through ChatGPT without, having to wait a week to book an appointment with someone. So
yeah, and you're about to launch, so you're sort of in that beta stage. Take us through the launch journey.
The biggest hurdle has been, and we've got a really good group of advisors, business people and what's not, who've been in this space before. And everyone says that when you're developing an app, it takes twice as long and costs twice as much money. And I didn't believe it, but I tell you what, it's been slapped me in the face a few times now. So that's definitely been the case. Yet the development has taken longer than we hoped, but we're also really keen to get a good product, right? So that's been a hurdle. We're slowly but surely getting there. And then, as you said, go to market. We are going to go to market sort of leaning on athletes and leaning on influencers, because these are good networks that we have, and we think that speaks pretty powerfully to the group of people, this sort of 20 to 40-year-old sort of males that we're going after. Of course, it's nervous because it's a bit of an unknown, especially for me. I'm used to working in the environments that I worked in, but at the same time, it's exciting because there's just so much opportunity and so much upside. So me personally, I like sitting on my couch and texting to it. But a lot of the feedback we've had, and even a lot of the beta users, like exactly as you said, jumping in the car after a busy day work and talking to it voice to voice. And even if it's for 5 minutes when you get in the car after work, just for you to get that off your chest, just to have a bit of a debrief, mind dump everything that you've done. And then you can get home and you can be present as a dad, as a husband, as a partner, whoever you are. So yeah, the voice to voice, in terms of the clunkiness, that's only going to improve from here on in. Even ChatGPT is improving their model day to day. And so we're actually using ChatGPT as our large language model. So we get access to those features.
Yeah.
But that's certainly something that we're going to lean into, is we want that feature to be really strong and to have a good understanding, very personalized understanding of who you are, what your pain points might be, what your habits are, what your goals are. So that it can then give really bespoke advice to you. We're at a really exciting time now where we're going to be able to lean into these things to get really good insights. And every day we see things that are coming out that are similar, which is good. It validates us in terms of, this is a space that people want.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coaching is moving in this direction, but we have these conversations every day. You've just got this anxiety that you do want to be first to market. But at the same time, as I said, we have really good advisors around us in terms of a board of advisors. We think we have pretty good processes in places. So therefore, we just have to trust that. And then what will be, will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also think that we've got a really strong network of people that we can help roll this out through. But first and foremost, we also have to deliver a good product. Otherwise, no one will use it, right? So yes, as an entrepreneur, these thoughts go through your head daily. But as I said, it's been exciting.